Going to use this opportunity to show you the login process for the IAB from the teacher perspective. I'm going to also fuse in the student perspective through a Chromebook that I recorded off a cell phone, only because a secure browser doesn't allow for screencasting like this here. But when you go to the CASP website, which is right here, casp.org, you will click on this here, Test Administrator Interface for all online tests. When you do that, you're going to come into a sign-in screen. And if you have everything saved, fantastic. Otherwise, you may have to establish those credentials. You want to make sure you do this before the IABs and certainly before the SBAC, just to avoid any kind of hiccups. In my case, it's all saved, it's all there. You may have to do something where you send a link to an email and then go in that way. But certainly once you get in, you're fine. In my case, I had our session open already. I'm just going to start a different session so you can see it from scratch. But really the screens that you're going to see are something like this. You have your option of your interim assessment or your alternate. Obviously, we're looking at the interim assessment. Now, when the window opens for the SBAC, you will also have an option somewhere either here or at the top for the SBAC. But this process is basically the same. So we're going to pick the IABs. The difference is the ICA is like a dress rehearsal for the SBAC. It's the long, basically just as long as the SBAC test. And you can use that to really give your students the full experience. The downside is that it takes very long and that it is also teacher graded with the writing pieces, and it's not something that gets sent out. So that's why we do the IABs are a lot shorter and give students the overall experience of the SBAC. So in this case, we'll do ELA grade 3, vocabulary and language use, just for the purposes of this video. You want to say okay to the important safety reminder saying, hey, don't put this out there into the world. And then you come down here to start operational session. When you do that, you're going to have this pop up if you want your test to be non-standardized or standardized. The difference really is for non-standardized, if you're using the IAB as an instructional tool, and also if you're just giving the IAB once so often just to give them the experience, you want to go that way. If you go standardized, then basically you're saying you're going to give this quite a few times as a measure of growth. If that is the option you take, that's certainly fine. Perhaps if you do this earlier in the year and you want to measure it out for growth, that would be an option as well. We'll go non-standardized in this case. We'll click OK, and you have now officially started a session. Here you have your session ID. That is what you're going to post onto the board, whether you write it or whether you just project it onto the board. That is what your students need in order to log into their session. In the video from the Chromebook version with the students, I walk you through what the students should be doing once they have this code and how it then looks on your end once they log in. So right now, this is just getting to the point of opening a session. You should be able to do that. This has been tried already and there have been no issues. So you should be able to log into your session. The next pieces of video will be the student experience and then also what happens after the students have logged in and started to request access to the test. And then that'll round out the entire experience. So happy testing. Hey everyone, I want to show you the student experience of logging into an IAB, and I'm doing this on a cell phone because we are on a secure browser and I can't access any other browsers or apps to be able to record the screen the way I will for the teacher's version, so bear with me. But the other pieces I want to show you before you even log into the secure browser, there's one important piece you want to make sure of, and that's making sure that your volume is up. So on the Chromebook, just make sure that your volume setting is up, because that's going to come into play later. When you go in to do a sound check and the sound's not working or the sound isn't up, you would have to log all the way back out and come back in to do that. So what you want to do is at the bottom here, you're going to notice, first of all, that the student is not signed in. The student cannot be signed in. They have to be signed completely out. You're going to come down here to where it says apps. Now, there's only one option, or there should be one option there. It's called Air Secure Test. You're going to click on that, and then it's going to open up your secure browser. When that happens, it'll then ask you to state your state of residence or your organization, and that's where you're going to put California, right there, and then California Assessment System, okay. Now, upon doing that, you're going to come to the sign-in screen, and this is where the students put their first name, and then their SSID, and then the session ID. And the session ID from the previous video you saw on the teacher section is that ID that you give them, that you write on the board or that you post onto the projector, and that's what they're going to use. So I'm going to use a code for a first grader only because I can use that as much as I want without impacting use. So I'm going to do that and log myself in as that first grader so you can see what that looks like. From this point, the student will look and confirm that this information is them. You will click yes, if it is indeed true. And then you'll be given the choice of what to test. Now, right now, it's only the IAB because that's pretty much what I set up when I opened the exam. The reason it's important to see the screen is because when it comes time to the SBAC, you're going to have a lot more options because you'll have your ELA, your math, and you'll have your performance task and your computer adaptive test. So you will be able to select any one of those when you do that. But in this case, we'll do the brief write. Now, when this student is waiting for approval on the teacher administrative side, you're going to get that screen that you saw with that. So the teacher has to approve. So right now, this student is waiting for the teacher to approve that screen. And I'm doing this on another screen so that that can happen. Now, once this happens, the screen will take a couple of seconds to refresh. And there you go. Now, the audio video checks are here. This is where the volume piece comes in handy. The student would have to press the play button and get that. If they're not getting any sound, they either did not have their volume up before logging in, or maybe they have headphones inside, or something's jacked up with the Chromebook. This is a good way to really do your checks and balances. After that, you put, I could play the video and sound. You want to click on that. And then once you click on that, you go to the next piece, you go to continue. And then it'll give you some help guide, test settings if you want, but really you want to begin the test now. If you go to test settings, you can check out what that is, but really for the students, begin the test now. And now they will be officially inside the IAB. Once you've begun your operational session and you have your session ID, you've posted that up for the students, you wrote it down somewhere where they can all see and log in. The students will then log in, and what's going to happen is this screen is going to flash every once so often, so that's basically refreshing to get an understanding of who's still taking the test, to update everything that's going on. So what I'm going to do is on the student side, I'm going to log into the test because I want to show you exactly what happens when that student is waiting for approval. Now this screen, you can either manually refresh it or it'll refresh on its own every few seconds anyway. Now when it refreshes, you're going to see this approval. That, when you click on it, will show you the test that's being approved, the student who's asking for approval, and then you have your options. So if you want to approve the student to take the test, you approve it or deny it. If you have several students, for example, when you're first logging everybody in, you may have 9, 12, 20 students. You can just approve all your students, and then it'll ask you to confirm. You say yes, and now that student is in, and the student will be able to do everything that they need to do to continue their test. So that, in a nutshell, is how you get a student into an IAB. The process is pretty much identical on the SBAC. And what you want to do also, just as a matter of recommendation, is really monitor the test status. Make sure that these numbers aren't going too fast. Students shouldn't be breezing through the test because that's indicative of some sort of wrongdoing or maybe negligence. They just want to get through it. And also any students that will show up as approval. Sometimes they come back after pausing it. Sometimes they take long in logging in. You just want to keep your eye on that to make sure that students aren't just sitting around waiting for something when they could be testing. So that, in a nutshell, is how you get them in. And when they pause the test, you will also be able to pause just like this. You can pause it on your own from your own interface, or students will pause it on their own, and you will see that reflected. So when you pause it, you'll see right there that it's paused. And after that, the students can come back in, re-log in, and continue where they are. So that's pretty much it, and happy testing.